All
Okay.
right, we do have a quorum. Don is here, Megan is here, I'm here, and you, Sam, that makes us 4. Ellen and Charles notified that they can't make it, so I'd sent out the most recent agenda for everyone to take a look at, and there's one typo in kind of one of the headings that for the public to be invited to participate in a Zoom webinar on, it says October 28th. It should say November 18th. And actually the one posted does say November 18th on it, but the one I
My
just sent
copy
out.
says November too. So
Okay, good. So moving forward, review and approve minutes of the October 28th meeting. Ellen was going to be working on those, I believe, and she isn't able to join us today, and we don't have those. So if we can, what do we do? Table that, I guess, for the next meeting.
yes.
Item 2, update on the endorsement of the Fitchburg trustees for public burial grounds, proposed to nominate several Fitchburg cemeteries as local historic places. After our discussion last meeting with, I believe, Michelle and Judy Perla, they had further discussion with Mass Historical, which at this time, they are not submitting a proposal to City Council to declare any of the burial grounds historical sites. And they're looking at other options of how they might proceed with that. They did talk with Mass Historical about various pieces, and they think that they are, because of their historic quality and perhaps updating some of their survey forms or the survey forms and submitting those updates to Mass Historical about the additional historical significance of several of the burial grounds and updates on the survey forms, similar to our Macris building forms, that they would be eligible for matching grant funds if they wish to go forward with that. Along with the Mass Historical matching grants funds, there are caveats of deed restrictions that are placed on the properties, historic deed restrictions placed onto that, which I believe the Burial Grounds Commission is aware of those, and they're considering exactly what type of funding they would use and if they would use matching grant funding from Mass Historical or not. So, so I think we'll take this off the agenda for next time, but this is where they are with it. We were not submitting to City Council with any recognition with our endorsement on that at the moment. Number 3 was Main Street brick sidewalk paving replacement at Christ Church, which is in the Monument Park Historic District. That was all brick paving. There were very large trees in that along the curbside that have hooved up the bricks in many places, and along with the making it difficult to traverse, particularly those with mobility issues and ADA types of requirements for those, and the amount of levelness required to meet the ADA standards. Because of the extent of the root structure, Tom Swirowski had let me know that this is an in-process project and that they had to remove large portions of the brick paving and a lot of destroyed concrete under pavement under the brick that was completely crumbled up by the root structure, and that these areas, they didn't have the funds to re-brick this area. which was designated kind of way back when it was done, for helping to designate the Monument Park Historic District. They are going to put in, because of budget constraints, they're just going to be putting a brick edging that I believe that's right next to the curb, and then a level ADA compliant concrete sidewalks for the main walking areas at this point is all that they can afford to do at this point. So they removed the troublesome trees, trouble as far as the sidewalk is concerned, and they are streetscaping with concrete with a brick edge on it at this time. They appreciated our input and getting back to them on this, and certainly talking about coordinating future issues of recognizing historic qualities of the city, along with the others, this and other future streetscape projects. So we kind of acknowledge that and hoping to be working together, obviously in a partnership going forward. So just to note that that has happened, and we had that correspondence with planning and community development as the two-way traffic scheme of Main Street is going forward. So that's number 3. I don't know, any comments from
Well, at
Weatherman?
least they didn't use fake brick, so that's a plus.
Yes, they didn't use the red concrete with a stamp on the top of it, so, or asphalt with stamps.
Or asphalt, right?
Yeah, it could have been that. Okay. Number 4, proposed Fitchburg Historical Commission rules and regulations.
I've been looking at them. I haven't gotten very far.
Okay.
I'm sort of confused because it seems to me that an historical commission is one function and a historical district commission is another. So how do you fold them both into one set of rules and regulations? Maybe they should be 2 separate
Documents.
documents.
Yes, I think it's that's a good question, and we are, to the best of our knowledge, we are a dual commission. We are both a historical commission that is basically advocating and advising for historical resources in the city, and we are also
Guardians.
we also are a local historic district commission, and we have one local historic district, which is the Monument Park Historic District. And along with Sam, I've done some research in this, and I've actually kind of spurred on with this when Judy Perla and Michelle, I can't think of her last name, talked with Mass Historical about the Cemeteries Commission filings or grant money, et cetera. The person that, because we had mentioned local historic districts at our last meeting to the Burial Grounds Commission, they mentioned that to Ben Haley at Mass Historical Commission. And Ben said to them that, to his knowledge, there are no local historic districts in Fitchburg.
Oh.
And I just was in contact with, I called Ben actually this morning just to kind of verify that, and he said that there was no record of it, but he recommended that and I said, well, we have the city statute, or code, if you will, that was voted on by city council in 1975 to establish the historic district. So I was saying, doesn't that mean that we have one? And he was saying that we should review this. For some reason, it's not recorded, Mass Historical. And he said to review this with Jen Doherty, who is the um, MHC representative to the local historical commissions. She's kind of the circuit person that's out traveling about and kind of serves, or is kind of our first point of contact with the Mass Historical. So I've emailed Jen today, and she was saying that she's not at the headquarters right now, and because it's so old, not sure if it was digitally recorded since then, or she would have to go through the actual records of 1975 to see if they have a recording of that. And she said it would be very important to see if there was actually a map of the boundaries that was filed with the Fitchburg City Clerk at the time. And she's saying that to her knowledge, this map also has to be recorded with the Registry of Deeds. So, and for us to be able to, in the statutes that we have from the city, it's saying that there is a map on record with the city clerk that defines the boundaries of the Monument Park local historic district.
So basically, they've lost their records, and we are supposed to reconstruct them.
We could do that. I think it's probably one of the options that we should do. She's going to be checking. I sent an email to Mike O'Hara, who's been helpful with the commission and he's in community development and one of the planners in community development, and has been sending us our correspondence and stuff as we've been kind of moving along. I sent an email to Mike to see if he could double down to see if he could help find this map, if there is one. Mike has said that a lot of these old records were stored in the old City Hall basement, or City Hall when it was old, before renovation. It was very damp and musty and wet down there. Maybe these things didn't last. The stuff was moved at some time after City Hall was closed down. And then all or portions of it were moved back into nice, clean, dry storage that's down there now. And that's kind of where we are right now to see if we can actually find it, or if we need to refile and have the designation reappointed and being able to create, use a correct map for this designation.
Right.
So
But Keith, haven't we been seeing maps of the Monument Square local historic district over the years?
We've been seeing maps of the National Register Monument Park Historic District. There's
Isn't
one.
that the same as ours?
According to Mass Historical, that's not the same. And the map makes a difference. The one that's filed with the city clerk.
Well, why don't we, couldn't we just take the national parks map and file that and have that recorded as our map?
We can. There are two of them. There are two survey forms for Monument Park. One of them is like 75 or 76. That's the original. And in 2000, there was an extended Monument Park district created, which basically included all of the library site and the Fay Club and Lucy's Barn behind the Fay Club, and maybe the Historical Society building. So there's a little bit of difference. It's called the Expanded Monument Park District. And I believe that's the one we would want to file, but we would need to refile that with through the city council and have it redone again, I guess. So I guess we would want to, today, I would propose that we use the expanded district if we do need to refile. And do we have consensus on that? Or do you want to take a look at the two?
I would go with the enlarged one myself.
I agree with Sam.
Megan, your
I
thoughts?
agree. Do you have to make a motion or?
Sure, we can make a motion on it that we would prefer to have the expanded district. So,
So moved.
okay. Further discussion, and those in favor of using the expanded district if we refile, say aye. Aye. Okay, the motion passes unanimously. All right, so I'll try to take it to the next level once we find out some more information. If we are able to find the map and it shows the old district, we'll take that up if that happens and figure out what's going on. Okay. And getting back to the rules and regulations, I've taken a look at a few of them also, and that's kind of how we got into this also. I've kind of combined some pieces from those, and I was getting at that indeed, if we are a local historic district, and I think this is very important because of the library expansion that's happening and the eminent change of ownership of the old courthouse. These being two important pieces that we need to have some procedures and guidelines of exactly what does the local historic ruling and preservation, if you will, what are, how is that done, and what are the guidelines and precedences of the criteria that we would judge appropriateness, hardship, or inappropriateness, I guess, of the pieces. In general, there's three rulings that the local historic commission would make. A certificate of appropriateness once the applicant presents their change or design proposals for their project in the district. And we would have a public hearing that needs a 2-week notice and abutters notified, et cetera. And an actual hearing process to go forward, the presentation, methods, the type of material received, how we would rule on it, and the actual certificates of the ruling or the appropriateness of the particular applicant's request or the denial of it. And these get recorded with the city clerk and remain in our files, and several procedures on it. And with large projects like these two particular projects could be, or let's say that Christ Church is going to, put a tower, up alongside their building, or they're going to be changing the glass to clear glass, or aluminum siding one of the towers, or whatever it might be. We would need some type of procedures for any of these particular projects. For instance, the Fay Club is putting up a new fencing and retaining wall area between the Fay Club and the library. Now it looks like they're making nice brick piers and things like that. Would something like that, or should something like that actually come before? And are they actually in the historic district or not? And this is all kind of up in the air because we just don't have the rulings on it. But we will soon have challenges from this, from two major projects that we're trying to make sure the heritage is passed on to those who follow. So that's where, and so it's possible that we could have a regular commission meeting that then turns into a hearing portion of it. That so we could have our regular meeting until 3:30, and at 3:30 the public hearing starts for a particular applicant in it. We could have that hearing, we could close the hearing and go on back to our regular commission meeting. So with the dual thing, I think, as Sam was saying, how do we note that, and how do we proceed? What are the proceedings for these things? What is the type of documentation we have, particularly for the local historic district commission, and how do we record these pieces?
Maybe we could put the district regulations as an addendum to our general commission regulations. So it would come at the end of the rules and regulations as a separate piece connected.
Sure. Yep. And with it as the design guidelines or whatever the procedure and the forms and things too.
Right.
Sure. Yep. So it's somebody looking at them saying, okay, this is this commission, there's this commission, these are the different ways we do things. Since it's the same commission, what are the responsibilities of the chair and the secretary, and do we have a vice chair, and what if the chair doesn't show up? What do you do in that case? And so there are some procedural things we can take a look at, and we'll send out drafts for everybody to take a look at once we decide if we have the historic district portion of it. But we'll keep working on those in the meantime. Yes.
So I'm working on a project for my part-time job with another town, and who's doing a historic district as well. And I recommended them to look at the town of Maynard, their historic page. I would recommend looking at that because they actually they describe what a district is and all that on their homepage in a very clear, non-dumbing down way though, and it's very well written. So I
Okay.
looked at that.
Okay, town of Maynard, you said?
Town of Maynard, yep.
Good.
Metro West area, yeah.
So do they have theirs kind of combined together, or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. But they also describe like what their role is in the community, and so it's an education piece too. And what does it mean to be a historic building and district, and all that. It's very well done. So
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take a look at that.
Mhm.
What we might do is once we come up with our draft, we'll certainly send these to planning and community development. We should send it to the building commissioner also, because they become an active person who, it's issuing permits and making sure they understand what the historic district boundaries are, and that they're kind of the first in control of notifying the owner or the applicants for building permits that they have to go through the commission if it is in the local district. So getting their feedback to at least those two, and perhaps some others, maybe the city solicitor's office, just to make sure we have things like they should be if they have time to take a look at it. And we can also send it to Mass Historical for their kind of any editing and saying maybe we should change this to that, and because some issues in other towns that they're aware of. Okay, good. So we'll take a look at Maynard, and certainly others. You're a little bit familiar with Worcester's also.
yeah, that's a dual group too. They have dual responsibilities. So the districts have a little bit more regulation than the other areas, but it's a trigger process through the building commissioner there. And so whatever is 50 years or older gets triggered if a building permit is pulled. And then the building commissioner will send them to the historic commission before they can move forward with their building permit process.
That's with the demolition delay or a historic
That's
district?
with a demolition delay, yep.
Yes. So once we get our demolition delay ordinance in, we're going to get really busy.
Mhm.
And, if indeed we do that, I'm thinking that having a hard time getting a quorum as it is right now, that we, along with the demolition delay, we might want to amend our charter to add alternate members in it at that time that we do those together. And that's just a kind of thinking out loud suggestion. As we imply these controlling ordinances, if you will, particularly the demolition delay and perhaps the stone wall ordinance, and certainly the upcoming Monument Park buildings, that this commission will become much more active than we are right now. And that's a good reason to have those rules and regulations and procedures and things so that we in the public kind of understand what the process is on these things. So, okay, thank you. Next, demolition delay draft.
Yep, I've been out straight. I sincerely apologize for that. I don't know if anyone else wants to take it on because I don't see any end in sight. I apologize for taking so long to come to that realization.
Yeah.
So,
Have you made any suggested changes to kind of our draft yet, or?
I haven't had any time between work and I have a part-time job at night after work, so.
Yeah.
5
Come
days.
on, Megan, you could do 10
And I have
different things at
kids.
the same time.
I have young kids and just, I don't know. I'm so sorry about this. I feel bad.
Any other takers at this point, or do we have other fish to fry at the moment? And let's obviously keep it on the agenda. And maybe as we get through this rules and regulation piece and the Monument Park piece, which will be taking some of our time. The brochure committee is, no, we'll get to that in a little bit. That's taking up some time of our members also. So let's just leave it there. It's ongoing. Number 6, update on the Stonewall Preservation Ordinance draft. And at the last meeting or the one before that, Don had resent out his updated wording for the ordinance. And any comments from others on this?
I have a few,
Okay.
unless somebody else wants to speak first.
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, the definition of a historic stone wall says anything built before or in the 1930s. That seems extremely recent for me. I think most of them were built from the time of the Revolution up to the early 19th century. So something built in the 1930s doesn't seem historical to me, as stone walls go. I'm wondering also how it would be enforced, and is there some sort of inventory needed once we determine the criteria for deciding that a stone wall is historic, and who would fund the inventory? And also, Don says it's not intended to be punitive, but I noticed that the fine is $500 a day, which sounds pretty punitive to me. But to
Okay.
me,
Let me address the date one first, and this might be something that I had kind of suggested to Don's original, that I thought that besides the early settlers, fieldstone walls, particularly dividing up land and so forth, that I thought it might be important, and maybe this is the wrong ordinance for it, to include the quarried stone that is specifically Fitchburg's, with its Rollstone quarry, or the quarry at the top of the Rollstone Hill, quarries that were up there, and kind of much different than a lot of other cities in Massachusetts, maybe not that much
Yeah, but
different, but
Keith,
I'm thinking of the quarried stone, like retaining walls and bridges and things like that too.
Right.
But yes,
Well, I think those are separate, really, because most stone walls are just field stone picked up in the pastures and put to one side.
mhm. Exactly.
How about 1900 instead of 1930?
Sure.
Why 1900?
Well, go back. I'm trying to be generous. I think most of them were built long before 1900.
Are you
Like the
saying up to
1830s, maybe.
1930? So, like from up to 1930, not from.
Yeah, so before 1930 or proposed before 1900 is what Sam is saying. And that kind of gets into the quarry walls, which are more angular and not just field stones,
Right.
do we not have this as part of this ordinance? And we're really just talking about fieldstone early settlers and the changing forest lands into agricultural lands, and
And back to forest.
back to forest,
Right.
that these land divisions and their structure and things as part of our landscape, if you will, and heritage of typically in New England and in particular the fieldstone walls. Certainly outside the city center, I don't think there's many of them left in the well-developed housing areas, but certainly in the more rural areas of the city, there are a lot of stones and stone walls going up past Don's house, not too far out of the city center. So it
There are
represents
plenty
some-
up here on High Rock Road, too.
Yes, I bet there are. Okay. Do you, just to follow up on, do the quarried retaining walls and granite walls and things from the local quarry, should they be part of this?
Oh, they should be protected somehow, I would think, but I don't see them as part of fieldstone fences.
So would we take it out of this
Separate effort,
ordinance,
yeah.
or?
How does Don feel if he wrote this?
So that-
I think a lot of we tend to think of historic stone walls as those from the early 19th century, I suppose, when the people were, clearing forests. But a lot of them actually date up to the time of the Depression. And that is a concern, that because yeah, this ordinance is not meant to be punitive. And we can eliminate the $500. I just borrowed that from the template. But it's to make people aware that the historic stone walls are not just those of some time in the distant past. They're fairly recent. They're early 20th, many of them are early 20th century. And I'm basing that on the book of the scholar who I talked with. He gave a talk at the library here, and he says, you know, the towns need a historic stone wall ordinance. So I contacted him and I asked him, you know, what's the cutoff date for historic stone walls? He said up to the Depression, up to the 1930s. So theoretically, he's the expert because he's written a book about it. But you know, I'm open to if someone has evidence that there are no or very few historic stone walls after 1900, fine. You know, then we can do up to 1900. But you know, I tend to listen to experts unless the evidence counters that. So I'd be interested in the evidence that there are very few historic stone walls after 1900.
Let's just to do an example. If someone violates this, let's say this is up for the building commissioner to, and perhaps zoning board, if they're reviewing a land development or something, it would be up to the building inspector or the planning board approving, let's say, a development. There's lots of farmland open, and the zoning bylaws allow you to divide it up into pieces. So I have an 80-acre parcel of land that I'm going to put a cul-de-sac in. I'm going to put in 20 house sites into it, or whatever number is developable. And it has one or two stone walls crossing through it. This would be something that the zoning board would be asking for a site plan of the existing conditions, showing stone walls, I guess, and a site plan showing the developed project with, you know, the stone walls remaining. Is that how it would be enforced? Would the building inspector saying if somebody had a parcel of land and they were going to, let's say it's commercially developable, and it has a stone wall running through it, or a granite retaining wall from before 1930 or 1900, and this happens to be on private property, let's say, that this ordinance would govern the preservation of this, and they would need to do their development around it. And if I'm just, what are the tools that the building commissioner and planning board might have? If it's just a single lot, the planning board doesn't get involved in it unless they're looking for a variance of use or a change in lot line or setbacks or something, or maybe the zoning board of appeal would be involved in it, and they would be looking at this ordinance along with it, and as the building commissioner would be also. So I'm just thinking of how other towns do this and how we I think we would send this out to the building commissioner and planning board and community development for their review before we take this to city council.
Yeah, I agree. The more review, the better. Yeah, and I think the kind of objections Sam is raising are crucial. Those are exactly the objections or the concerns that will be expressed, and I don't know how to express it better, but what I'm trying to do is raise consciousness. Now, okay, my experience has been that they won't even have to be farmers. They could have bought some old farmland. They sell the stone from the walls, and great for them. They make money. But that's in towns that don't have an ordinance. And there's no awareness that, well, what they're doing, yeah, they're making some money, fine, but they're also dismantling part of the historical heritage of New England and Massachusetts. And the local towns don't know that. So fine, yeah, he dismantled that old stone wall, sold the stones, made some money, fine. But there's a downside to that. And it's almost, you can't stop, if someone has a stone wall on their property, you can't stop them going out in the middle of the night, just deconstructing it, taking the stones and selling them someplace. You can't, so no, there's no way to enforce this. But if someone comes who is conscientious and says, okay, I have an old stone wall, what are the rules regarding this? How do we approach this? Okay, if it's off in the forest, you leave it alone. It's equivalent to an archaeological site. If it's facing a street, then you try to reconstruct it as much as you can. Up to your ability, in accordance with the way the wall was before. So it's also a guidance for whatever local commission is, whether zoning commission or whatever, is being asked about this. So yeah, it's not punitive. You could even put fine to be determined later if you even want to put that in. So yeah, I'm thinking in terms of the stone walls on my property. What do I do? Are there any guidelines? I want to do the right thing with these stone walls. What are the guidelines? I went to a talk, heard someone who's written about historic stone walls. I have his book. Okay, that's good for me as an individual, but what about the town? Maybe an ordinance is the wrong way to go. I don't know. It's the only thing I could think of. So there we are. Have I shut down?
No.
I think we're all just kind of thinking.
Would we, we can certainly get some additional opinions from the building commissioner and from planning board, and we can send it out to community development, building commissioner, and the planning board, or building commissioner, just city employees at the moment, the building commissioner and community development office for their opinions, because they deal with the planning board a bit instead of making those volunteers. I think the planning board is volunteer like we are, but I'm not sure. Maybe get their feedback first before we send it to the planning board for their input. Maybe we want to change the fine right now, so that's not a biggest issue. If
I could do that.
We could just say to be determined.
that could be $1,000 a day then.
It could be.
Slap on the wrist, $10, $100 a day or something like that, making it not quite as.
Yeah, that, I put that in because, what was the town, I based this on another town ordinance, and that's what that other town ordinance had, so I put that that way.
Yeah, if it is an ordinance, it is, there, if you don't follow the ordinance, you're breaking the law. And what is the, if you're breaking the law, there has to be some retribution that placed on you, or something that you have to reimburse the community for whatever bad thing you did. So if intention is to have it with, as something that applies to everybody, I think it would have to be an ordinance. And there should be some punitive piece to that if you don't comply with the ordinance. That is reviewed, city council has to approve it, and then it kind of goes forward. I don't think the city council would, I think they would be looking for some sort of, what happens when somebody doesn't do this. And it's kind of a little bit of like the building code, I guess. If I do my own electrical work in my house, maybe it should be done by an electrician, but who knows if I put in a new plug socket or something in there, and I get shocked by it, that's my own fault. Or, I build a garage, inside the setback line. There is a punitive thing for that. I might have to tear it down and move it back because I'm not, if a neighbor knows about it and they're going to go to the city or the building commissioner and make a complaint and saying this zoning bylaw is being abused, and the person has to, if they don't tear it down, they're going to be fined so many things per day or whatever, so many dollars per day that they don't do it. So having some teeth to it, that I second thoughts about moving that stone wall and selling it, I could be fined because there is an ordinance and there is punitive repercussions to doing that. So
I agree with Keith. I think there should be some, as you say, teeth to this, because why write it if, I just think it would just be something shelved on the shelf, because I don't think people are considerate enough to be conscientious to go to us to even discuss it unless there is some regulatory measure. I really feel strongly that if this is a passion of the group, that there needs to be some sort of repercussions. Maybe it's not a $500 fine, maybe it's a different amount, but I think there needs to have some level of accountability with this. If it involves demolish by the property owners doing,
And I think kind of large scale, I think for developers that have a large tract of land and they're creating a housing development, let's say like Bridle Cross Landing or whatever it's called out there, the end of was it Rollstone Street or whatever it is out there where Ellen lives. That must include, I don't know, 80 acres of land out there. I mean, it seems like it's huge. I'm sure that was farmland. I'm sure that it had stone walls going through it at one time. And there's, certainly a lot of open land that is developable into housing or maybe even commercial types of properties that have stone structures on it, from stone walls or granite retaining walls or bridges or whatever. And would this apply to city bridges? Would this apply to the city also? That if we're rebuilding, Route, is it 2A that comes in on Kimball and Laurel Street, and Laurel Street comes into Water Street, and there's that large 3-arch stone bridge that connects into Route 12 before it crosses north and goes, over the railroad tracks to Main Street. That is a granite stone bridge that I don't know where the stone came from, but if it came from our local quarries, or it's certainly an architectural or engineering feature of the probably the 20th century or early 21st century, or 21st, the 20th or the 19th or 20th century, excuse me. When that was built, it's highly joined. It's a stone arch bridge over the river and over 2 railroad lines that went up into, kind of alongside of it there. It would be, and it's Fitchburg, as a lot of the other stone retaining walls that the railroads out on River Street, and other parts, and even stone retaining walls up off of Main Street to the north in the major city part. A lot to do with the river and railroad, but even, houses held up with stone walls, et cetera. Being able to preserve these, I don't know. It's kind of Fitchburg, and it's kind of a face of Fitchburg, and a lot of it is from the quarry. I'm kind of disturbed that the granite in front of the new city hall that goes around the steps and so forth is certainly granite that comes from Vermont, and it's not the same color of granite that's probably in the foundations of City Hall that are local granite and things too. Then that's anyhow.
Well, if they don't reopen our own quarry, that's what we'll have to settle for.
Yeah. So
And there are lots of closed quarries around. There are no more in Quincy operating. I don't think even in Rhode Island there's much available.
And getting stone to match the old Fitchburg stone would be hard to find,
Lots of
perhaps.
that.
What's your pleasure on this agenda item? Do we want to make a minor change on the fee, or leave it as it is? 1, carry it over to next meeting. We think about it some more. 2, vote on sending it to the building commissioner and planning and community development for their review and feedback to us. 3, adding the planning board to that as they would be an enforcing review board, if you will.
It sounds like a good idea to have input from all of those departments.
Okay.
Okay, and no change in the $500 fee? Should I leave that in there?
Send it out as is.
As is, okay.
Yeah, and see what they say.
Okay.
So Don, would you be
Yes,
Want to head this up and maybe just copy us on your correspondence to them?
sure.
Okay,
Sounds good.
all right, so, so moved.
Was that a vote?
Let's make it a vote. We have a vote to
Yes.
accept the ordinance as Don had sent out most recently, and that we send this to three bodies: the building commissioner, the planning and development department, and also to the chair of the planning board.
I don't think we're accepting it. We're asking for input before
Yes,
we.
yes, we're
commit.
not accepting it, but yes, we are just moving to get input from these three bodies.
We're seeking advice.
Yes,
Yes.
before we make our final. Great, thank you. In the vote,
So moved.
aye,
I,
Aye.
I,
okay. All right, unanimous. All right, next item. Update on Simon Saw and Steel, Intervale Road, proposing historic documentation of architectural design features. This is something that I'm trying to spearhead, and I'm waiting for Ellen to get, she's talking with one of the Simons family people that is out of state at the moment, just seeing if their family would be willing to be involved with some interviews and so forth on the history and perhaps some other documentation. Finding outside funding to help to pay the consultant on this, not using any city monies on this. So just a project that I'm kind of heading. So no action on that so far, or no report of progress. Number 8, update on historic districts information brochure, information guide, signage, web posting, and Fitchburg State faculty-led student project coordination ongoing this fall. Just before this meeting, Don and I met with J.J. Sylvia, a professor at Fitchburg State, who is working with the student this semester on creating the brochure. We're making some good progress on it. We have basically a map of downtown areas that have National Register historic districts or designating buildings. And they include from east to west, Warren Square Historic District, the H.M. Francis Overlay Historic District that starts with Rollstone Church and kind of goes up Main Street, if you will, to the northwest. The next is Monument Park, National Register Historic District, expanded. The next is Crocker Field, which I think is a district, but it's certainly multiple things on the site there. And the fifth one is the Academy District that is pending. That's part of the B.F. Brown, the old city stables, the Academy School, which is an H.M. Francis building also, and I believe the Longeau elementary or middle school, I believe it is now, and perhaps the Wallace stairs that go up to them too. So I'm waiting to hear back from New View Communities exactly what their proposed historic district boundaries are for this, but those are the 5 major historic districts that's where you hope to feature in this brochure. Along Main Street, kind of the downtown area historic districts. This is going to be a 12 panel fold out brochure in this first iteration. that ends up that would fit in a regular 4-inch by 11-inch high brochure slot. And it would have right up on these 5 districts and the history on them with some images and a map that shows kind of their location. So there is progress. We're hoping to have that finished up by the end of December, or pretty far close to it at that time. We're going to be meeting again in a couple of weeks with some more information, and we're creating text and getting some images and so forth and some logo. Don, anything you would want to add to that?
No, the work that JJ, Sylvia, and Morgan are doing is excellent, and I'm really very pleased with it. The brochure will look very attractive, I think, and so it's really worth doing. And also the website that JJ talked about with the QR codes access, it will really help people become aware of the historic architecture of Fitchburg. So yeah, I'm very pleased with the way it's going.
Good. Yeah, this is going to hopefully tie into next semester. JJ had a site that that several agencies are using that have digital maps with, if you just type in a location or a city in this, is it a Clio software, I believe it is, that
Yes.
the Art Museum is using and some other nonprofit agencies are using, along with some other national register types of pieces are using, where it can take us right into these, and it shows up on maps and things. So we would show up on this, and it's also using their already set up links to other kind of informational things. So this could be continually added to. And this is something that we're working on in the second semester of this year, after the brochure is done, of coming up with signage and these digital informational links for downtown and beyond heritage of Fitchburg. So more to come, we hope. Fundraising, I just remembered something, Don, that we should probably talk with planning and community development and see if to put the bug in their ear about setting aside some funding for the printing of this.
Yes.
Because it's not going to go anywhere unless we can get it printed and distributed. So I've made a note that I'll talk with Tom on that, just to put a bug in his ear and see if they could. Hopefully they haven't. Have you guys done your budgeting and things for next year already? Probably so. I know it's getting late in the year. I'm not sure what your fiscal years are. Or Megan, I don't know if your agency works with the city that way as far as funding. No. Okay. You're muted, by the way, but
No. We're independent from the city in terms of our budget, and we start January 1st.
okay. All right. Number 9, filling the vacancy on the commission. Megan, you talked with Nick. Do you want to fill us in on what he had said?
Sure. So Nick, I sent an email to Nick, actually several emails, and I finally got a hold of him. He is unavailable for this year because he has a year-long term of being president of the local chapter of the National Realty Group. I don't really know what the group's title is, so my apologies, but he doesn't want to spread himself too thin at this point, so he will reconsider when his term is up, though, which doesn't leave us in a good situation in terms of finding somebody now, but just please leave him on the horizon, hopefully. Leave him on the back burner.
Okay, so maybe a year from now,
Yeah,
Nick would consider, and it would be good if we did have somebody from the real estate community, as is kind of in our charter. We're supposed to have a representative from 2 nominations from the local realty organization.
I do know somebody else that I've been in a lot of communication with, and I feel comfortable asking her at this point. Her name's Tracy Sladen. She has been really active in the downtown sales lately, like I don't know the number, but it's on the corner, it's at that split of Lunenburg Street and Summer Street, the big stone building. She's sold that, and she's very familiar with a lot of the historic properties in the downtown area. So I think she might be a good addition if she would be interested, if the board is amenable to that.
Okay. That sounds good. That's on the corner of Summer and Lunenburg?
Yeah, the one that's across the street from the Morin Square Diner, and also across the other street from the new Morin Square development near the fire station. It's the big stone building with the black trim.
Yes, that's an H.M. Francis, and I
Yes.
think it's called the Morin Block or something like that.
Yes, she recently sold
Named
that.
for the Morin family, or the people who were involved with that area there. That sounds good. What's her name again?
Tracy Sladen, Sladen. I can reach out to her.
Maybe if you could send that name out to us by email, just, in the meantime, I ran into Peter Capodaglio, who runs the Boulder Gallery and the Boulder Walks, up to Rollstone Hill. And just a little revealing, I have a couple paintings in his gallery, so just putting that out there, that I doubt if we will ever sell, so I don't really have a financial investment in this. But I asked him if he might be interested. He's a member of the planning board, and one of our suggested other members could be a member of the planning board because of coordination of projects that happening in early planning stages, and coordination between the two. The planning board and the historical commission might be valuable. Peter is a longtime citizen of Fitchburg and has a lot of historical information, very involved with the Historical Society, and a lot of information about the history of Fitchburg, particularly Ivor Johnson bicycles is one of his things, et cetera, and the buildings he's helping to maintain on Main Street area and things. He said, I sent him some information about what the dual responsibilities of the commission and some of the projects we're doing. And he said he would consider it, and I haven't heard back from him if he would be interested in being nominated also. So maybe if Megan, you could just send a little bit of information about the other nominee, and we could make a kind of a final approach to someone soon, so we can get this vacancy filled soon too. So. Any other suggestions on the vacancy? I would like to let the mayor know and be active on it, but it'd be good to have some suggestions in at the same time. So people that would be interested. So if you think of anybody, let us all know. And okay, any new business? I think our plate is full.
Yeah.
Our plates are full. Next meeting is scheduled before Christmas, and we decided on December 16th, about a month from now. Same location, same Zoom. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Great. Thank you, everybody. We all have some tasks, I believe, to kind of continue on. So have a good Thanksgiving.
You too.
I
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.